Hello, this is Greg Payne, or I should say Pastor Greg Payne. I come to talk to you about, um, first of all, speaking in tongues. Um, I've been going through some of the videos posted on YouTube on speaking in tongues. Um, I can only testify what I personally experienced in regards to that. First of all, when it first happened, it happened to me in the water, coming up out of the water uh, in the baptism. The actual speaking in tongues came almost immediately after, as I was driving back to my college dorm house at the time from Vancouver, Washington to Portland, Oregon. My tongue started to move uncontrollably, like something was taking control of it. I had seen two flashes of light once before I went into the water baptism and once after I came up out of the water. Um, and just the best way I could describe it is like a camera flash. That's what I saw. But I believe it was in the imparting of the Holy Spirit. It was two parts, however you want to categorize that. I do believe it was the imparting of the Holy Spirit. And I just wanted to say that I didn't believe in the speaking in tongues um, until it started happening. And I got to the college dorm house and I went to a private place where I was alone. I didn't want to be a holy roller or some off the wall goofball thing. And so I took it to the Lord in prayer. Okay. Like I said, I didn't really believe in it. And I was shocked to see it, you know, happening to me when I really didn't believe it. And a second, I need to, excuse me, I had to turn up my volume. Um, anyway, I took it to a private place and I asked, I told God, I said, I think I have a foul spirit, because something wants to take control of my tongue. I just had to let it go, and it prayed in the angelic language, the unknown language. And I thought, wow, you know, it's happened to me, but I don't get the feeling that I have to be a holy roller or stick my hands up in the air and all this other stuff. Um, and I asked him for the gift of interpretation. That was the best thing I had ever done. The gift of interpretation, when I told him, I think I have a foul spirit because I don't believe in this and there's something wrong with it. But he wanted to reassure me. And when I asked him for the gift of interpretation, he gave it to me immediately, as a matter of fact. And um, the first word in English, in our own language, most of us anyway, um, the first word that came out of my mouth was Bible. I looked, I looked up and told him, I said, well, I must be on the right track anyway. At least I know it's not coming from the other side. So I felt a little more confident about it. first came out, excuse me, the sentences were broken. You know, the words didn't fit all of it, very smoothly. So it's like baby tart. Excuse me. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that now speaks in full sentences. And what I found to be true with this is that this is a very precious gift, and with the gift of interpretation, where he can speak to you in English. He will tell you what his will for your life is. This is very important. This is very important. And Peter touched on it. He says, confirm your call and election. If you do this, you shall never fall. He was right. That is a precious gift, and it's been being abused and misused by people that are just mimicking, beginning to believe. Um, they pray for some pretty absurd things, and it's like they're seeking their own glory. The Pentecostals. Pentecostals are right in one regard. I do believe now that the speaking in tongues is a definite sign of your salvation. That much I'm convinced of, because I didn't have it just asking Christ into your heart. There's a danger right there. In fact, there's a danger in going into the water. John, the Apostle John, says to test the spirits. And we all hear voices. And there is a spiritual possession. The key thing is to be possessed by the Son of God. That isn't always easy, or that easy to do. I think he tests your sincerity. Satan can turn into an angel of light, or make himself as an angel of light, and deceive somebody into thinking that they have received the Holy Spirit. That's why John says, test the spirits. All of us hear voices, but if that spirit can say, or can't say, let's say he can't say Jesus is Lord, or he can't say the name Jesus, period, but he speaks, or it speaks, then you know you have a foul spirit and you need to get rid of it. And the only way to do that is to keep asking Christ to come into your heart. And even then, that is a conversionary experience. It is not a salvation experience. If you manage to get the genuine thing, and the word works, used in the Bible, he showed me where some of the writings are not real accurate. Some of it was due to vocabulary. They didn't have things in their vocabulary at the time to convey messages the way they wanted to. The word works should not have been used. That threw everything off. Salvation is required, okay? Faith, okay? Faith without obedience. There's a difference. Faith without obedience is dead. And that's what James was trying to tell the Apostle Paul. This touches into a different subject now. The Apostle Paul. I have to give a special lecture on the Apostle Paul. We have some problems with that one. I believe he was a false apostle and that he was not beheaded. He got off as a Roman citizen. I have learned that the Apostle Peter, his missionary notes were taken out of the canon. They weren't even submitted to the canon, I don't think, because it talked about hell a lot. And that's why people don't believe in hell now. It's not in the Bible. Why should they? They have generalized salvation. The salvation experience comes through the water baptism and the uh, parting of the Holy Spirit. That is your actual salvation experience. The conversionary experience comes with, asking Christ into your heart. That's conversionary. A person can remain in that state, but they're not saved. They're converted, but it says that even the demons and devils believe in Jesus Christ. That's conversionary. They understand, they know, and they tremble, as the Bible says. And in our case, you need to do what John says. We need to get back to the original 12 disciples. They were the ones that had the truth. They were the ones that worked with Jesus. The Apostle Paul was the 13th. He was not a replacement for Judas. He's a loose cannon, and the original 12 did not like him. And the Apostle Paul, that's where the sinner's prayer comes from. Because the Apostle Paul didn't teach salvation. He didn't teach anything. He never taught salvation. He never went through any steps. He downplayed baptism. He downplayed a lot of stuff. He more or less glorified himself. He was a braggart. I was an apostle from Jesus Christ, pointing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm not really sure if he actually went to his death or not. Like I said, he was a Roman citizen, and I think it was probably a setup because Christ mentioned it. Jesus mentioned it himself. He says, and he talked to his disciples about it. He says, if one comes to you and says, "Behold, I'm in the desert," uh, do not believe it. And that's where the Apostle Paul was on his road to Damascus. I think it was set up to throw Peter off. Christ specifically said he was going to build his church on the original 12 disciples. Judas threw a monkey wrench into the whole works. And that's why Christ said it would be better that that man had never been born. So Jesus was aware of what was going to happen. And he tried to tell them. But I don't think they really comprehended it. But they tried. In their own way, they tried. And they couldn't help when their writings were apparently taken out. We were very fortunate to have what we have. I think God allows things like that to happen for us to search things out. there's more to this than what meets the eye. I don't think it's that simple, at least not from what I've experienced personally. What I've experienced was it's been quite complex in the way of how God works with it. I mean, I had an abusive mother, so it drove me to God at an early stage in my life. And so I got accustomed to things with him, with Christ. There was a Walt Disney children's program in the 1950s that I kind of took it to heart because my mom beat the truth into you. Um, it was Jiminy Cricket, and I don't remember the name of the show itself. It was a Walt Disney cartoon, uh, and it focused on let your conscience be your guide. That's the inner person. That is what you want to preserve. I had to find out the hard way. So I speak with experience. There is something to that one. It's the inner person. And if that child lies at an early stage in their life, psychiatrists would say, the child's personality is formed by the age of 5. Their chances of changing are not very good. So I don't think it's as easy for them. When the Bible talks about it, your conscience gets seared, and they don't hear the inner voice anymore because they seared their conscience. That's why. This thing has to start at the home. Mine started just by a fluke, an accident. He just happened to have an abusive mother, and I was terrified of her as a child. I don't know what she did to me as an infant. I know she was physically violent and verbally abusive. She's full blood English. However, her parents helped bring me up. I was never a bad kid. I was too afraid to be bad. With my mom, I'd be lucky to have all 32 teeth left in my mouth when she'd hit in the face, man, like a man. And I mean, she hit hard or slap. And I can forgive her. Now I get along fine with her. But right now, she's 90 years old and she don't remember any of us now. So with her, it's really hard to say whether she's just on a sympathy trip and actually doesn't remember, or maybe she does indeed actually don't remember us anymore. I've never been able to deal very well with Alzheimer's. My dad died of it too. And my mom, I'm quite sure, is on her way out. If the Alzheimer's is really as bad as it shows, she hasn't communicated, wrote, she hasn't called, she hasn't done anything. And my mom and I really were quite close uh, afterwards. In my later adulthood, I didn't have no problem with her. You know, she straightened up quite a bit. She still had some of her old weight, but not hitting. But she'd still play some games. And I didn't always approve of what she did, but that was her, I guess. My little sister, she can't stand her. It had nothing to do with her. Because my mom assaulted her. as well as she assaulted me. So, but anyway, what I saw was that it started as a child and it went to, I'm a combat veteran from the United States Army Infantry. What you're looking at right now is my room at the Oregon Veterans Home in the Dalles, Oregon. Um, I've been here for going into my 14th year, um, and I really enjoy it. They've got good people, good care here, and the Lord's really blessed it, and I'm really happy for it. It's probably the best home I've ever had. So, having experienced combat on two different fronts, one in Vietnam and one in Korea on the DMZ. First one in Vietnam, I served with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade, as was on my hat. And then the second tour was on the DMZ in Korea with the 7th Infantry Division Light. Um, and I didn't have to have reserve duty because I put in two different tours of combat as an infantryman. So the state of Washington said you don't have to wear the uniform anymore. You did more than your share, so we're excusing you from having to go 4 years more reserve duty. They were actually really very nice about it. It was a good thing, and I got a $250 bonus check in the same letter, and it said, "Thank you for your time and service, and we're excusing you from reserve duty so you don't have to attend. And, you're free to go. Thank you. Have a nice life." So, and I'm here because of Agent Orange. I was exposed to chemical deployment over there in Vietnam, and also in Korea for that matter. They sprayed up there too, so I kind of got a double dose of it. Uh, the Lord's been pretty good with me in regards to health. Okay, and I am addressing all of this to my good friends, the Jews for Jesus and uh, Muslims for Jesus, and the International Jews and Christian Fellowship uh, group. These particular groups I really like to speak to, and I want them to be able to see my videos and reply. I'm making myself hopefully more available. Um, okay, then, like I said, there's a lot of topics that I really need to cover with you. Okay, the other subject I wanted to bring up was the second coming of Christ has just begun. And I've been watching it. The sky. Watch the sky. It's getting dark. I thought at first it was a fluke. And I've been following that thing with the Russian bombers. When I noticed, off our coastline, off the west coastline, and I'm here in Oregon and on the west coast. And there was a video on the Russian bombers off of our coast, the Pacific. And this is actually probably taken more out in the Central Pacific. And it was nothing but black clouds, black and gray, and for miles, both the inner and upper atmospheres. Bombers, like the nuclear bombers, have to fly high. And so I don't know what elevation they were at, but it looked to me like it was in between the inner and outer atmospheres. It was kind of right along the border of it. Um, they were just barely going through the outer atmosphere. I'm guessing, say maybe 29,000 feet. Um, there was just a sliver of light, and it was diffused light at that. It was darkened, but it was enough to see the bombers, of course. Um, Otherwise, you may not have seen them without that little sliver of light. So, what I'm saying is that I checked other areas of the world out of curiosity, and it's the same gray color. Um, he gave me a period of 26 years. Now, this is where faith and obedience comes in on our daily walk with him. This is what he, and this is what Peter meant. You have to find his call and election, and he'll ask you to do other things besides just preach the gospel. It's not just that. It's that plays a big role. Don't misunderstand me. But there's other things that he will speak to you about that he wants you to do. When in response to some of the dreams or visions, he wants you to tell other people about them for other reasons. He had me even call the FBI for national security reasons. He showed me the Twin Towers. I didn't know what I was looking at. That happened in the 1990s, many years before the actual happening. And that's what the FBI said. They said many people turn in. I asked for dream interpretations, and because they have things like that, they interpret dreams, visions, and whatnot. They said they get them turned in from all over the country, and a lot of them match up. They admitted it. They said there's something to it, but the trouble with it is what they said was that uh, it was no. Uh, they doesn't. They don't give a location. They don't tell where it's at or why it's happening. But yet the dream itself or vision, whichever it may be, is very realistic and very identical. And that puzzled them. That actually puzzled the FBI. They didn't know how to respond to it. They said that we come out to interview you because we want to get all the notes, in detail, because we do keep record of it. Because we have a lot of the same people, same dreams turned in by different people from all over. And, they said the only problem they have with it is the fact that they couldn't identify and be ready to counter move the attack or whatever it is that's going to be taking place. They had no idea where to go. And they said that was the biggest problem with the dream interpretations. They said, yeah, it's obvious that there was going to be a catastrophe of some sort uh, for that many people to have the same dream. But where? Where was this supposed to happen at? And they couldn't figure that one out. I couldn't give them an answer for it either. I don't know. I'm stuck just like you are. So, yeah, dream analysis, that was an interesting conversation with them and how they do that. Uh, but what I see is what I saw in the dreams. The sky is just like what it was in the dreams. I only saw it in my dreams out of the 26 years. I only saw the sky gray a couple of times, gray like it is right now. If you look out your window, you'll see it's all gray. It, I've checked other parts of the world and it has the same opaque gray. Eventually, that will grow darker and darker. He blots out the sun. It's the same thing as he did when he released the angel of death over the land of Egypt. He blacked out the sky. He blacked out the sky with rain clouds when he in Noah's flood. He blacked now on the second coming of Christ. The sector we're going into the second destruction of the earth. He is had it with the human race. It's all over. Those that are going to be saved, if you're going to be saved, you better do it now. And I mean quick. The age of grace, if it's not closed right now, as we speak, it will surprise me. If you get shut out on the outside, you'll be going through the Great Tribulation period. If you want to be saved, then you have to pay with your life. That was the exhortation to being ready. You had to make sure that the spirit you have in your body, a type of spiritual possession, now, if you will, it had to be Jesus Christ. It could not be a counterfeit by Satan, who could appear as an angel of light, and by their self-complacency, they shall surely die. And when I say die, I don't mean just physically. I mean death spiritually in hell. There's going to be a lot of Christians that are going to be going to hell on the account of the Apostle Paul. He did not teach baptism. And that's why all your Protestant churches have sprinkling. This is a warning to the Protestant churches. All of you, if you listen to Pope Francis, who has announced himself to be the Antichrist, then he goes through all the steps. Pope Francis, listen to him. He's going to incorporate the Protestant churches into the Catholic churches to create that one world church that's been foretold for centuries. And people poo-pooed at it and say, oh no, he hasn't come, Christ hasn't come yet. So why worry, where's God at? That's their attitude. Then they don't believe in hell because Peter's missionary notes were taken out. And Paul did not talk about hell. See, Paul apparently was used as a convenience to the Catholic Church and the corruption in it during the Dark Ages. From the Emperor Nero on down, we have had probably about three major world leaders, world rulers that tried to commit genocide on Christians and Jews. One was, of course, the biggest and probably the greatest of mass execution of Jews and Christians in world history was the Emperor Nero of Rome, who fed them to the lions, tigers. put them in the gladiator rings, tortured them, anything, and burnt them at the stake. Anything he could do to get rid of them, he would do it. Then there was Napoleon Bonaparte of France, and he beheaded people by the millions, and he got catacombs under Paris that's built on nothing but a underground graveyard of their own people. And the French people finally exiled Napoleon on the Canary Islands, I believe, off the coast of Africa, there in the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. They wouldn't let him back in the country. He killed Joan of Arc. She tried to take him on, didn't work. And the French people made her a saint. And Napoleon, they exiled him. So there you have it, But I get this strange feeling that the clouds will thicken and the sky will grow black. And there's some serious repercussions on this. Stop and think about it. If what we are watching is indeed the precursor and the forerunner of the second coming of Christ, he said the day of the Lord would come in darkness and thick clouds. Who can bear it? And Christ himself said, walk while there is yet daylight, unless the darkness overcome you, and you trip and stumble and fall into the ditch with the rest of the wicked. And you shall be appointed your portion of the hypocrites, whether it be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Test the spirits. Do it now. That explains why our time has been going so fast. You notice that? It's because our time has run out. Now, the handwriting's on the wall of the sky, and it says, doom. You're gonna watch severe vengeance and the second destruction of the earth. It's not going to be pretty. Those of us that are ready and have Jesus Christ in full measure in possession of our souls, that's the purpose of having him inside of you, as he will possess your soul. He talked about it. He said, when you have a strong man in your house, but he's at disarray and scatters and doesn't gather, he is from the devil. But you get yet a stronger man, who is the Holy Spirit, so you're referring to. Cast the other man out, for he has no power. Then the house of that soul is clean and tidy and garnished. And so there you have the spiritual possession. And you have to test those spirits to make sure that the one you have is genuine. As I said it once, I'll say it again. By your self-complacency, you shall surely die. And you don't want that. So, hell's a real place. That's another thing. So, all this stuff is starting to show up. And in the book of Daniel, it talks about it there. There's so many different areas that these things I'm mentioning are in the Bible. You just have to look. The book of Daniel, he said that information in those days would grow. And people would run to and fro and pass information from one to another until all the pieces of this puzzle, the truth, would finally come out. And that's exactly what's taking place right now. Christ wants us to search and to test and to make sure that you are sincere. I think it's a test of sincerity. I really do. You have to really want it. He's not going to take any half steppers. And you have to count the cost. He warned about it. He warned about that too. You have to go back to his teachings. You cannot rely on that Apostle Paul like the Protestant churches have done. They're going to pay for it. They don't know it, but Pope Francis is to create that one world church. Pope Francis has declared for the Protestant churches, he said the war with Martin Luther is over. Now he offers the olive branch, the peace. He wants to bring the Protestant churches back into the Catholic Church. He's going to incorporate all of you, and he's going to be doing it through the church registries. He's going to require every pastor, minister, priest, whatever, he's going to require them to turn in their membership roster. He's going through the church registries. And he's going to stamp every last one of you 666. He talks about it. Follow it. It's interesting. And he talks about the power that he's achieved and how he's going to do it and why. It's all in regards to the New World Order that's taking place now. Wake up, people. Wake up, America. And that president. Oh, God. There's another can of worms. The United States is so far behind in education that we're flat outright stupid. Hollywood promotes stupidity to our young people. Oh, it's cool to be stupid. Well, I'm sorry. That's not the case. And to have so much illiteracy, people that do not have any common sense or senses of danger, they sense nothing. Ignorance is bliss, I guess. I don't understand it because it wasn't, that kind of behavior was not found in my generation. Did not do that. I come from John Kennedy's generation. We had the best education in the world. He taught that we were winners, not losers. You need to check my site, Christ Baptist Church. I cover everything. And the Beatles need to be taught. John Lennon, Beatle John Lennon's, it's come out now that his little revolution that he had going with the hippie movement, the anti-Vietnam War protests, and the attack on Jesus Christ um, brought down our society. We are living in John Lennon's society. They killed him for a reason. He was Looney Tunes. Actually, he was very smart in the wrong ways. He knew what he was doing, and he was good at it, and he was very witty. You'll see, I'm working on the section about the Beatles right now. I'm going to be adding their songs. It's a composite of everything. Okay, take it back to the 60s, where the Great Rebellion, that's the Great Rebellion that Christ talked about. When the disciples asked him, said, what will be it like? What will the signs of the times be like when the time comes? The close of the age. He said, do you not know the scriptures? That the signs of the times shall not show up until the great rebellion comes first and the falling away. Beatle John Lennon did it. Imagine there is no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. He was very poetic, very, very intelligent, very witty, very sarcastic, and very rebellious. And he was, as it turned out, a communist leader that came through the entertainment section, just as the McCarthyism said it would, except they didn't expect it to come from a different country. That's where Lenin was just a little too young for the McCarthyism, and coming from a different country, he slipped in, and they didn't recognize it until after the Beatles got here. It was too late. He couldn't do anything about it then. John Kennedy knew about it. I come from, like I said, my mother was full-blood English, and my dad was English. So I come from an all-English family. I'm only second-generation American. And I did have a cousin that grew up with the Beatles in Liverpool. And he came over here because Kennedy, at the time in '63, which nobody had heard of the Beatles during that time, not here in America. They were famous in Europe at the time. But my cousin, I was born in 1949. The youngest of the Beatles was born in 1943. So we're in the same basic age bracket within a 10-year decade period of time. My cousin was born in 1946. So he was a couple of years older than me. That's why he knew them so well. And being, growing up in the same town and stuff. Yeah, he knew them. And he grew up with them. We went to school together. And he said he lived about 5 doors down, he said, from Ringo Starr. And so I kind of got Cut gave me a good insight on both sides of the story, and as far as the cultural shock that the Beatles put the world in, and with a different type of music that captivated the world. They were good. I have to give them credit. They were very good, but they were into Satanism, and the occult. They were connected with the Illuminati. That's what Pope Francis mentioned. John Lennon paved the way to where we are today. The younger people are we're all living in John Lennon's society of freedom from religion, um, and no marriage. They just find a consensual partner and live together. They don't work out, fine. You go find somebody different. And it's gone to homosexuality and things that I don't think Beatle John Lennon even had imagined. He turned this society on its ear. And the Beatles were very powerful. And they had a clever manager, Brian Epstein. I wasn't going to talk about the Beatles, but it needs to be taught, because I lived through that generation. And I have a cultural connection to them on both sides of my family. That's another scary part. My my dad's brother, younger brother, booked them. He was a booking manager, an entertainment manager for the Seattle Civic Auditorium. He got the job after the Seattle World's Fair in 1962. Well, the Beatles came out in 64, right after the assassination of John Kennedy in November 22nd, 1963. Then President Johnson let the Beatles in country and lifted the bar against them, because that's what my cousin was griping about. He said, well, we have to listen to the Beatles now, because your president has stopped them from coming into your country. And he says they play with great power and dynamics, and they're heading your way, whether you like it or not. They're coming over here, and you better be ready for them. And well, he wasn't kidding. Wow, they struck up one or two chords on "I Want to Hold Your Hand." That song swept the world around the world about 5 times in about 4 or 5 seconds of the first chord or two chords played. It was unbelievable. They were billionaires in one concert. And John Lennon was connected with the Illuminati and the Freemasons. And a lot of the musicians, rock stars, singers, actors, and actresses have to go through the Illuminati. Christ talked about this kind of thing too. You can't serve both God and mammon, both. You know, and do it. You either cling to one or and hate the other. In the Beatles' case, all four of them. I don't know about George Harrison. I tend to want to give George a little slack. I've got all this stuff on video posted for everyone to look at, including hell and Christians going to hell. And I believe that the true Sabbath is on Saturday, starting Friday evening, going into Saturday, and ending on Saturday evening or early Sunday morning. But it stops. And that Sunday was the Devil's Day, Sun Worship Day. And the Catholic, well, Pope Francis said, well, we changed the Sabbath back in 335 AD. He said the Protestant churches don't seem to understand that they've been bending the knee to Satan for centuries and haven't known it. Now he's going to take advantage of it. And he's going to kill people with the 666. And those of us that don't show up on church registries, that's why God says to come out of her, my people. And that's why I think the darkness is starting to come across the skies. God is going to blot out the sun and the moon. He's going to turn out the lights on the human race. And they're going to fight. He said it. Man liked darkness better because their deeds were evil. So he's going to let them have it. And he said he would take the tares out first, remember? He shoves them all out in the corner in a far distant place. And they are taken out to be burnt in hell. And he's going to kill them by the billions. That's before it goes to Armageddon. Excuse me. But anyway, tired. I just wanted to say these things because I felt led to do this. And it's a serious thing. And if you haven't been saved, please do not waste any more time. You don't want to go through what is going to happen to the earth now. Because I think that God has shut the door. The age of grace, if it hasn't come to an end yet, it's about to come to an end. And I think you can pretty well mark my words on it. Still a little early to tell for sure. But the sky is weird. It's not natural. A lot of people around here say, oh, it's fog. Fog doesn't go up into the outer atmosphere, I'm sorry. There may be fog, but it's not that high up in the air. Fog's pretty low covered. The fog is usually cold. This is not cold. It's cool, but it's not cold. It's kind of balmy, actually. What I started to say about the consequences of this is if what we are watching is indeed the darkening of the sky that will turn black and blocks out all sunlight, we're not going to have any food. Think about it. No sunlight. Nothing will grow. There's very serious consequences in this. And the handwriting's on the wall. And it spells doom. Mm-hmm. Water will dry up. Food will die out. Trees will die out. Mankind will be killing for food and water. Obama probably wouldn't be able to institute that Obamacare thing with the computer chip. He'll use it, but it'll have to be in a different fashion, I think. The passion, if he wants to use that, and I get the impression that he's going to start a war that he can't stop. He's that stupid. but he's going to start a war so he could get into as a third term president. It almost has to be that way because of the way it's set up with the New World Order. Just Pope Francis mentioned, uh, he was connected to the Illuminati and the Freemasons for satanic power. It's got the Catholic Church has gone to what they call Luciferian worship, worship of the devil, and it's full blown. All you have to do is follow YouTube or follow my site. I've got it on my site. I got everything starting to compile. It's going to be very interesting for you. All of you, I highly encourage you. I've spent a lot of time on it, and I'm thoroughly enjoying the work that I put into it so far. I also have a little memorial for remembrance of some of my friends that were killed in Vietnam. Uh, and I have different causes that you can contribute to, like help keep Christ in Christmas. And I have a happy birthday notice for Jesus. After all, it is his birthday. So I just wanted to let you people know that I am thinking about you. I haven't forgot you. And I would love to have your input on some of this. I notice I don't have any viewers. Well, if I'm beating the air and no one pays attention to it, I put out my 2 cents worth. If you don't follow up on it, and it turns out to be true, then in Vietnam it was Hanoi. Sorry about that. And you need to act on it. You really do. And act now. Man, I better sign off. I'll be looking for at least some comments or input. I know I haven't been on for a while, and I feel bad about that. But I've been working on that site, Christ Baptist Church. All I have to do is type in Christ Baptist Church in all capital letters. It should come up on the Google indexing. I got feeds connected to it from several social sites. Boy, yeah. But anyway, I'm getting tired. I need to sign off and wish you all a Merry Christmas, by the way. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as we head into 2015. Can you imagine that? I'll elaborate more on the various subjects that I've just brought up, for that matter, such as salvation, such as the Beatles, stuff that really needs to be taught to the younger generation, because they come from broken homes now because of Lennon's free love. And that's another thing. He thought that the women were going to submit to free sex all the time. And that backfired. That was the hippie free love that he instituted. Apparently, Elvis Presley wanted that same society that John Lennon actually succeeded in instituting. I think they call it the New Age, New World Society. It's connected with the New World Order. It's all connected. John Lennon just paved the way. He took us on the magical mystery tour from Satanism through communism and set the trap, and they killed him for it. Now, Lennon is in hell. I got documentation on that. It's interesting. I think you're going to enjoy going through all my videos, all my graphics. They all tell stories. Click them on. I got links and uh, playlists of videos. There were videos related to subject matter. Uh, Play it, listen to it, read it. It's great. For right now, I need to sign off. Okay, sorry about that. You folks take care out there, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. See you. See you in the funny papers. Take care. God bless, and like I said, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.